following God and doing the right thing before him doesn't necessarily guarantee that everything else will be perfect. He doesn't owe us that, right? I remember the first time she said that to me, and I was like, "Ngicela ume, please, please, whoa," because excuse me, miss. No,
Of course he does.
Like,
I've been a good girl.
I've been a good girl. I've done this the way. He does not owe me that, right? He doesn't. He is a good father despite that. The fact that hasn't happened in my life the way that I expected it to happen doesn't take away his goodness. It doesn't diminish his beauty and his sufficiency. He still is.
Hi there. Hi. Welcome. I am Nobukumalo and welcome to the inaugural episode of Seasons with Nobukumalo, which is a new series that I am, launching, where I get to sit down with some of the, incredible people I've had the privilege of rubbing shoulders with. And we have a chat, about life's different seasons in the hopes that, you will feel seen, that you will relate, and that you just know that you're not alone. I'm so excited. So I said it's the inaugural episode because this is actually episode 1, and this is finally happening. I don't know if you can see how excited I am, but the excitement in the room is palpable. But let me not blabber on. I am so privileged today that my first guest is someone that I absolutely adore. She is the middle child and has 2 sisters and loving parents. She hails from Nelspruit in South Africa, and she's a Swati lady. And she's genuinely one of those people who just has a big heart. She's a lover of note. She is kind. She is warm. She's also very, very organized. I think that's one of the things that I learned about her early on. But her love transcends the human species, and she also loves animals, and that is evidenced in her choosing actually to spend her life caring for animals. So she's a doctor, a vet, a doctor of animals, and I'm just like, of all the things, I'm just privileged that I get to call her my friend, and bigger than that she agreed to be my first guest. So welcome, Dr Thandi Maseko. I've never called you doctor.
I know, right?
But welcome, friend, welcome, Thandi. I remember the first thing that came to my mind when I saw you for the first time. I was like, she is so pretty.
Oh my God.
I remember. and think about it now, because like I'm looking at you and you're like, you're just bright and radiant and glowing, and you just always like that, So that's the first thing. When I saw you from afar, it was at church. I was like, that girl is so pretty. And then when I came close, you're also just like the warmest person ever, right? And that warmness in a space of a couple of weeks, like it's like we clicked instantly. Honestly, and she's now become one of my closest friends over a period of just like 1 year.
1 year. Literally, it's like a year now.
It's a year. It's a year.
It's literally,
it's been a year. Happy anniversary.
Happy anniversary.
Like it hasn't, like, listen, we've stepped on each other's toes maybe once or twice, but I think it was settled now, and I'm just really so privileged to know you, friend. So thank you for coming on. I really appreciate it. So we could talk forever and blabber on, but let's get straight into it.
Get into it.
So I did say earlier that you are a vet, but your path to it wasn't linear, right? So you are not new to you have experienced wanting something and having to wait for it.
Yeah.
So maybe let me take a step back. Like, you always know that you wanted to be a vet. What is it about animals? Did you want to be a doctor for humans and then decided to be a doctor for vet? Like, what was it?
So I love science. I love biology.
Yeah.
It was like always my favorite subjects in school.
Yeah.
And then I distinctly remember my mentor. She came and did an op for our dogs. So we've always grown up with dogs. My dad loves dogs, and it's just like it was a thing in the family. So I've always grown up around dogs, and I was somehow always the one that was taking care of the dogs. If it wasn't my dad, was me, middle child.
Yeah. But last born probably didn't want to do it. First born is the one who tells people what to do. So
and it was just like a natural gravitation towards it.
Yeah.
To this day, my parents always tell the story of how I would always explain. We had like silkworms in preschool. So we had a project where we had to raise and like take care of the silkworms.
Uh-huh.
So I would be explaining to anyone who would listen, like, you give me 2 seconds, I'll tell you the entire life cycle
Of a silkworm.
of a silkworm.
Okay, so it was in the
it was
plan.
like, it was in my plan.
Yeah.
And, growing up, seeing my mentor come and treat our dogs for us in our backyard. And, she was always helping and doing like these little things. And she was like, you can be a vet. You're like, but I didn't know what it was.
What it was.
Like, even though I went to like a Model C school, it wasn't like one of those careers that people talk about.
It is like you're an accountant, you're a doctor or a lawyer, those mainstream ones.
Those mainstream ones. So starting off, it was, okay, I want to be a doctor. I want to help people. So like, that's the thing. And then I remember going to Texas Open Day and coming across the Faculty of Veterinary Science booth, and the guy was like, what are your marks? We're like, what do your grades look like? And I was like, okay, here are my grades. Like, and he's like, you should apply. I literally took an application and applied that day without like a lot of knowledge about it. But I think that was also just God being like, here's an opportunity, take it. Yeah. And you're like 18 and you're not really sure what you're doing. Yeah. And that was like the first step. Yeah.
So that application that you made, you applied specifically for the vet program. But that's not how life worked out.
No,
right?
Not at all. Not at all.
like many people, like you go through, your high school, even when you're writing for matric, you guys, for us, like our A levels, you got this picture in your head of what you're going to be. You have it all figured out. But life doesn't always work out the way we think it's going to work out.
Not at all.
So what happens between applying for vet and ending up in animal science? What happened there?
So I apply with my brilliant marks. I get in. And then I think just before I was meant to start in January, I get this letter and they say, look, we require all vet students to first complete this degree, this animal science degree. So it was, at the time, it was a dual degree program. So everyone who became a vet, a lot, and find this quite often in South Africa, that a lot of the vets that qualified before the recent changes have dual degrees. So they all had to complete a BSc and then apply towards the end of their BSc and then get in. And that changed sort of like in the middle of when we were there. It kind of became like a singular degree that you could go straight into veterinary, into the veterinary faculty and continue studying. So I get this letter and they're like, you need to do a BSc. And I'm like, okay.
Wait. So before your time, it used to be that you need to start a BSc first and then a vet thing.
Yeah, so how it used to be called a vet biology.
But then how did they allow you to apply straight for vet and accept you and you get into class? So and then they're like, oh, by the way.
This is like part of the whole it was a weird transition period. So our group was like, when I went in, it was a weird transition that there was still remnants of the old program, but they were trying to really implement the new program. So hence why they weren't even forthcoming with a lot of the information as well at the time. So
it was a fumble on their side though, because you have geared yourself for the fact that, no, I'm going to do this straight in. And then you're told you have to do a whole entire degree. A whole entire degree isn't just time.
Yeah. It's commitment. It's commitment. It's financial commitment as well. So
what feelings are going through your head at that time?
I thought it was normal. So I was like, as well, again, my mentor was really instrumental in this. And she was like, you know what, it's fine. Like, carry on. You're going to be a vet. Like, you're doing this, do it. So I didn't really take too much. I didn't take it to heart a lot. And then I'm now in varsity, coming off of high school. And anyone who will do that transition from high school, where you're the top performer and you're doing really well, you've passed with distinctions, and then that bridge to get into varsity and coping with varsity life. You're away from home, you're away from your family, your normal like routine, and now you're told you need to now compete for spots. And there's Thandile now, and it is hitting me hard. So I also experienced a very bad injury in that year as well. So physically, I wasn't in my top shape. Emotionally, I was not coping. The pace at which that, we were being taught in varsity, in the program, in the competition, and knowing that everyone that you're meeting essentially in your course of like 600-700 students, they're all trying to vie for like 150
for the
spots.
Same spots,
And it's like, guys.
So was it that once you do that first animal science degree, it's not that everyone who does that goes into it. So there's like it's like a, what do they call it, a bottleneck type of thing.
Bottleneck type of thing. And you're now competing against basically the whole of South Africa, because everyone who wants to become a vet in South Africa has to go through this one faculty that has.
And then they just go into like, so you can't relax. You can't let your guard down. You can't be like, oh, I'm in smooth sailing from here.
No. So life would have it. I did dismally in that year. That year.
And this is coming from someone, you had always been top of the class. You're very competitive also, not just like in terms of academics. You played what, hockey? I
played first team hockey. I was, doing like cultural activities. Like if you're talking about a person who had the colors on their blazer,
you were that girl.
I was that girl. Right.
And so you met with your first failure at like what? How old are you at this point?
At this point, I'm like 18. Like,
and you've lived 18 years of your life, never having to deal with failure.
Exactly.
And now suddenly
it's like dun 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 dun.
What are you thinking? What are you feeling during that time?
I distinctly actually remember having a conversation with my dad, because for me, coming like at home, academics was very important. My parents were both in the educational field, so it's a given. School comes first, everything comes second. So failure as well, in the way that my parents handled it, like you knew you could fail, but also
and then when
you must be clear how you fail as well.
Right?
So I remember coming back and I was so worried and so stressed about how am I going to tell my parents that I have not done as well as I thought I was going to do.
Can you define failure? Because for a high achiever, failure could be, oh, I'm so used to like distinctions and now I'm in varsity and like I got a 52.
Yeah.
It is a failure in terms of your own standards. Yeah. But for a lot of people, they'll be like, "What you crying about?" Right? So
exactly.
At that time, what when you say you had failed dismally, what is failure?
It's failure. I dropped modules. Actually, I had actually failed modules.
You had failed proper.
I had failed proper. I had failed a module. I can't even remember exactly how many, but I'd failed modules in that first year. Yeah. In addition to that, knowing and realizing and come to the realization that, like, look, that I'm not going to make the cut. I'm not going to become a vet this year. I'm not making that transition to a whole other campus as well, because this is now on, like, if you're talking vet, it's a whole prestigious campus. They have their own space.
Yeah, I remember. So background, I also went to tax, right? So we knew that it's called
Ondersteboort.
Exactly. I lived like 4 years of my life there. Could never. But they had their own campus. Yeah. We knew that, those guys are balling, in their own. So it was prestigious. I see the prestige.
The prestige. Yeah. It's elite. It's the creme de la creme of South African academics. Literally, I mean, you've got type A people that are the ones. Some are legacy people because their parents have been vets all their lives. So they've grown up around this environment. They've grown up around this prestige of, becoming a vet. It's nothing to them. Yeah. It's nothing new. Yeah. Then you're coming in. You're from MP. You're a young black girl, and you're trying to compete in this, right? Yeah. And now you failed. And you have to go back home and be like, parents, Bazal. This happened, right? And kudos to my parents as well in that moment. I remember, because I was already beating myself up as a perfectionist, as a type A person. Yeah. Having to go back to my parents and say, like, this is what happened.
And I think it's a very deep thing that you're talking about, because I'm not a parent yet and stuff, but like I can think back and I can see how I don't think parents get the grasp of the fact that in all our failings as children, right? When I know I've done wrong, trust that I have beat myself up about it too. Exactly. Right? Because when you then have to go there and own up to it, their reaction makes it kind of sound like you are not dealing with disappointment with yourself as well, right? So yes, I was stupid, whatever, in that moment, but when I came to, I really did sit back and I was disappointed in myself and the decisions that I made. So I'm already feeling some type of way, about it. And as a parent, I'm not saying as a parent just be like, okay, it's fine, it's chill. That you have to have those conversations to guide your children in. But I think parents could exercise a little more empathy, right? Yeah. and saying, look, we're disappointed, this is wrong, you shouldn't have done A, B, C, D, you should have worked harder. But we understand that you're probably disappointed in yourself too, right? So we'll give you space also to navigate, because as much as the disappointment is theirs in a sense, the consequences are yours.
Yeah. You're the one.
Whereas for them it's a feeling, but you're the one who has to live with the effects of whatever it is that has happened.
So it's it was a beautiful moment. I remember we were sitting outside, I think it was Twins. South Africans will probably know Twins pizza. And we were waiting for our order, and I literally sat my dad down. It was Pick and Pay parking lot outside Twins, and I was like,
but that's impeccable timing. I think.
Listen.
It's like you're relaxed.
There's nothing. So I was like, I remember asking, like, turning to my dad, and being like, Papa, are you disappointed in me? And he was like, no. I know how hard it is to walk this journey and what you're trying to achieve. I completely understand it. I may not always get the full spectrum of it, but nothing you can do will ever disappoint me.
Oh, wow.
Right? And in that moment, I'm even getting goosebumps now because I'm just like, wow. And it felt like a partnering with my parents, and in that moment, to be like, okay, this big, impossible, never before seen dream in any of my history, in any of people that I know in my family. I only know one other Black female vet, and she is the one that is like, keep going. In that moment, it was like, okay, get up, girl.
Wow.
Get up. We're going back.
We're going back.
Come hell or high water. We are continuing.
And I can imagine, what would have happened if your father had said, yes, I am disappointed in you. Yeah. And sometimes the yes, I'm disappointed in you is not necessarily wrong, because if they are disappointed, it's honest. But if they had said it in such a way that you feel like, oh, I've literally like messed up my life. It could literally shape the trajectory.
Exactly.
Right? Because how you approach a situation as a parent or as a person of authority or whatever has an influence on whether this person feels like, okay, let me pick myself up and try again and do this again. Or whether they feel like, what's the point of trying anyway? I'm done for.
Yeah, so that grace, I will forever be so grateful. And it's grace that has come back up again, time and time again, in this journey called life of adulthood, of ushering. So we had that conversation, and I went back, and it was kind of like going back to the drawing board and being like, okay, where do I need to make the adjustments? How do I navigate this space again? And so that was like the first delay, right? That was the first step back. Like, okay, the ones that I came in with are now progressing and they're going forward. And I'm now here, right? Then you've gone to study a thing that not a lot of people know about.
Yep.
And then you start getting the, aren't you finishing?
Graduate, like, that's where you know when they're like explain it to me. Vela wenzad. That's where you know it's okay.
Yeah, like this one. And so it's like, it's not enough that you have your own doubts of like, what am I actually doing? Right now, you've got that externally as well, in those environments. And I think that was like the first time that you start kind of figuring out for yourself that, one, I had to lose the identity that my entire identity was encapsulated in my grades, and in my what do you do? Like, I had to figure out who is Thandegile
without
the
accolades,
right? Yeah, without the embroidery around the blazer, without the awards, without this, without that. Who is she, and who is she trying to become? So that was the first time, and then now, who is she? Not only to myself, but also to those around me, right? And that, I think, was the first settings that I kind of figured out, as in, there are voices in life that matter, and there are those that don't.
Oh man, speak to
right?
It. I was thinking about it right now, that the voices that mattered the most had already said, it is well.
It is well.
It is well. Mm-hmm. Pick yourself up. We are doing this together.
Exactly.
We are coming along for the ride. However long it takes, we are going to be here.
Yeah.
And then we go out into the world. It's unfortunate that that's the reality of life, that we don't live in a vacuum. We don't live only with the people who love us and care for us and care about how we feel.
Yeah.
But you're going to go into the world where people who don't even matter are going to have so many opinions about you.
And they are so quick with them.
They're so quick with them. There are so many opinions. And
Yeah.
and whereas a lot of us like to pretend that we don't care, even though we know those people don't matter, we care.
It still hits.
We
It still
might
hits.
not care at the
Yeah.
level of let me prove something to him, but we
Yeah.
care because of what it does to us. It reminds us that we have failed. It reminds us that we're not enough.
Yeah,
in a sense.
exactly.
Man.
So yeah, it's now shedding those voices. We would even joke at some point of, when people keep asking, when are you finishing? When are you done? And it's like, are you helping me pay my school fees, guys?
It's starting to sound like maybe I owe you something.
Maybe I don't know.
I'm
So
holding up the line for you. Yeah.
So you start kind of building that little bit of a thicker skin,
Yeah.
and navigating that space. And so it progresses. I carry on. I'm studying.
The friends that you have that have moved on, what is the relationship looking at like right now?
Listen, I am celebrating them, right? Which is hard sometimes, right? It's a tricky space to navigate.
Yeah.
I also am realizing whether or not they're actually true friends.
That's where I was going at. Because
Right.
you, as a person who's been left behind, because you have a beautiful heart, you can, I'm rooting for you, I'm celebrating you, I'm so happy for you. But the question is, how are they viewing you in your
exactly.
failure? Right? Because even with the best intention that you have outward, but how are they viewing you in your failure?
Yeah. And how are
are
they
you suddenly
able
not at their level?
Exactly.
Or are they still like, you're still a friend, and being like, your circle, your family, that is like, we are not disappointed. You can still do this.
You can still do this. So I think it revealed to me a lot of what I would say has been a grounding lesson even after varsity and moving away and coming to the UK and all of that. Knowing who your true friends are. I think I reached a point where I got tired of pouring into relationships that weren't pouring into me, right?
Can you speak on that?
And so
Man.
It's a tough lesson because I am a pourer. I am an encourager.
I'm gonna hold you right there because we've said this a lot of times when we're talking. We're like, friend, you're literally my mirror. Like we mirror each other. So when you're saying all these things, I'm like, I get it. I really get it because I'm exactly like that.
Exactly.
I know what it's like because I'm also I go hard for my people. I don't have a big circle maybe because I realize that maybe when I pour in heavy. So I don't think I have enough to pour into a big circle. So my circle is then small, and I really pour into that circle. So it hurts when people don't pour back.
When they don't pull back, and I think for many years as well. And I mean, we've had this conversation that my circle was my sisters. It was my family. People who came into my life in that season and in those years. They will also know, like, there were very few people that actually knew where I was, what I was going through, what I was learning, and what I was experiencing at the time, because you get tired of explaining a lot of things. You get tired of having to justify your process, and because you're already trying to justify it to yourself and work it out for yourself.
You need to make it make sense to yourself.
Make it make sense to me.
Girl, what's the plan?
What's the plan, you know?
Yeah.
So to have an additional source of someone who is not necessarily always having the greatest intention for you was a lesson to be learned. And it's a lesson that in hindsight, I'm like, oh God, I can see that protection, right? Because you would mourn that relationship, you mourn those friendships, you mourn those quote unquote safe spaces. Ganti, people that are just
not so safe
that
anymore.
are not so safe anymore. So I learned really quickly back in my early 20s how, like, what does that mean to be safe, and where am I most safe? And for a long time, it was my sisters. They are still to this day, without a question, like one of my backbones and that circle. And it now, you get that delay, and then you are held back, as I would say, and you're hidden. I think I like to believe that I was hidden in that season, to navigate that, to learn what I needed to learn, and then now catch up with the people that God knew I needed for the next phase of my life, right? So I'm at UP, I'm studying, I'm doing the animal science. I've got new friends. We're navigating that season together, right? At the back of my mind, I'm still like, I still want to be a vet. I still want to pursue this, but it's now taking longer. And it's like, okay, every year that passes and you're still getting that rejection letter, you're like, okay, maybe this isn't meant for me, right?
Exactly.
Maybe I'm not meant to be this person.
Because you're
right?
like, at what point do I stop trying?
Right?
Because there's the whole diamonds, the tried, and the fire, resilience, whatnot. But at what point do you come to this? Do you come to the space where you're like, you know what, this is not for me? And how do you know? Should I keep going?
Or should I stay?
There's this illustration that I've seen many times. Maybe you've seen the picture where it's like someone who's digging in, right? And then they show them like walking away when literally they were right
there. It was right there, right? So we're in this space, right? And we're navigating this continual digging. We're not answering as many questions to other people outside. Also, I would say in that period, God and we're good. We're okay. I would say we're okay, if I'm being very honest. We're okay. I wasn't blaming God at that point. Of saying like, you led me here, Jesus, and then now you're leaving me. I'm not, because a lot of it was in that season me thinking that I had to do stuff. I had to be the one that works. I had to be a doer. So I am studying. I'm pulling all-nighters. We are hustling, but a different kind of hustle. We're doing everything within our power. Until I think it was my final year of doing BSc, and my family has this tradition, especially when all three of us were in varsity. When we come home, my dad is insistent that we take a day trip as a family, wherever it may be. It's not like I don't come from money or but my parents were very intentional in creating memories. And being from Mpumalanga, those of you who know, we have beautiful scenery. So we would always take a drive. And the favorite place that we always loved to go was Macmac Pools. So this is now January towards, we've just come out of Christmas. We're taking the family trip. We're getting ready to go back to school. And there's a trail at Macmac Pools that's called, I think it's the Secretary Trail, if I'm not mistaken. So we're walking that trail as a family, navigating it. It's the first time I think I distinctly remember going to God, Lord, if this is not mine, please take it from me. This desire has been with me for years now, and it's not happening. So, you know what? I surrender. I release, and I hand it over to you. Do it with it as you will. Right? As you will. It's probably I can only remember one other time praying like that.
Thandi, right? That is such a bold prayer to pray, because it's it's coming to the point where you realize that God might actually decide to take it and do with it as He wills. And it's the question that am I ready for His will, right? Because a lot of us, when we pray that prayer, right, we're hoping that God will say, okay, fine. My child,
I'll give you what you have it, right? Yeah.
But what if God says, okay, fine, my child,
no,
I'm taking it.
Yeah.
Because you've handed it over. I'm taking it. So you have to be bold to pray that prayer.
So I don't know whether, friend.
You have to be very bold to pray that prayer.
You have to be very bold, and I think you also have to be very desperate. I think there's points in our lives that you have to get desperate with God, right? You have to get down to the nitty-gritty where the facade and the pretense.
The mask is off.
And the mask is off, and it's Ngwe no Jehovah. It's like the two of you, be it in a room, be it, and I would pray that it would not be in the valleys, but it sometimes tends to be in the valleys, right? I would pray that it's always in the mountaintops, that regardless of what we're going through, or even during the climb, that we can be in that place of constantly saying, I'm going to surrender this thing. But because we are human and we want to do things in our own power, they tend to be in the valleys. So I was in the valley, friend. And I am walking that trail, and I'm like, God, so let's come up with a new plan, Jesus. I am finishing now. Let's look at masters. Where are we going to do masters? I'm
What's
sort of,
next,
what's
basically?
next? So I'm chatting to professors. I'm navigating. I'm looking things up online. Maybe you can go study, do a master's abroad. Navigate a new space. Maybe leave SA for a little bit. Um, and God being God
God.
opens the door.
Whose ways are not our own.
Hey, he opens this door, and I get into vet in my final year, and it is now. I'm like, hey boo. Okay, we've been waiting for this for years.
When you've stopped doing.
When I've stopped doing.
When you've stopped being busy. When you've stopped all the strategy and the trying to fix things.
And the door opens, and it's mixed feelings, right? Because I'm now overthinking it. I'm like, maybe it isn't for me. If I take it, maybe it isn't for me now. Is it God opening this door? I'm like having these questions, and I remember even going to the head of faculty at the time and going, "Are you sure? Also, are you? Should I? Is it worth it? Because this thing has been denied of me for so long. Is it even still worth me going and pursuing it? Right?" So he's like, just finish and go. And even if you get there and you absolutely hate it, you still have a degree that you can use, and you can still pursue other things with it. And I'm like, okay, sound solid knowledge and advice. Okay, cool, we go. So we finish. I graduate. I graduated in my first year at Onderstepwet. So now I'm leaving Hatfield and familiar ground, chucked into this whole other environment where you're back with first years, actual first years. Now you've been in varsity for a couple of years, 3-4 years. You've navigated the space. You're a little bit older, and you start getting those strange looks. I remember the first time walking into campus, and now Onderstepwet is a beautiful campus. It's part farm. And you've got the lecture Arnold Tyler building in the middle. It's a world of its own.
I never
You've
made
got
it there. Hey?
you need,
I don't
and
think
we
I
need to
ever
take a
saw
trip,
it.
right?
We
We should next time we both home in
Yeah,
SA.
we
We
should.
should just go and take
We
a trip there,
should.
because I haven't been back since I
Yeah,
graduated.
same.
So
Same. I haven't been back to tax since
I had so we need to do that. So you walk in and it's overwhelming. You see all this history on the walls, of faces that don't look like yours, of memorabilia and statues built in honor of these people, right? And I remember the first lecture we sat in during orientation week, and they're telling us, people don't always make it through this course. And I'm like, hey, boo.
Like, what a great way to start.
What do you mean? What do you mean people don't make it through this course, right? It's a 6-year course. You're learning every species, and you're doing the cat, you're doing the dog, you're doing the cow, you're doing the horse, you're doing sheep, you're doing pigs, and a little bit of chickens and some exotics. So you're doing like everything, right? It's overwhelming to learn everything about every animal. And they literally like, this is a hard course. A lot of people don't make it through. And even if once you make it through, just know, people don't always enjoy it after, and it's a highly depressive career, and we have one of the highest suicide rates. And I'm like,
are you trying to get us to drop out? Can you just make it clear
well,
what you're trying to achieve?
like you really are. Like, are you trying to make us to drop out? Because
do you know how hard we fought to be here?
Be here, right? Do you know what I've sacrificed to be here? And I remember calling my parents after that and being like, hey guys,
That is Zofa.
hey guys, Nisho. And my mother, being the prayer warrior that she is, she was like, Danam, I carry on. No, God knows what he's doing there. And you're not entering that space alone. You're entering it with God. And friend, I will tell you, the experience of seeing God on that campus was, when we study the things that we study, it's not always visible and tangible that you can experience and see God in it, right? But I have the privilege of dissecting anatomy and seeing God's creation and seeing
how he perfectly placed everything in its place. And
And it's also like campus is full of people that do not believe in God, that do not acknowledge His existence even.
Like, how can it not be God? Can you
But
see
you
how
know, I remember
carefully
studying.
crafted it is?
Exactly. I remember studying for so part of the anatomy course, which is like one of the major courses that you do. You study the bones. You start off with the bones, and then you add the muscles, and then the nerves, and you kind of build up in that way.
Yeah.
And then you need to know the differences. They'll place. We used to have like sports exams where they'll place a bone in front of you, and you'll have to identify the species, what muscle attaches to that. It's like it was, and it's spot test, right? I remember studying in my room and being like, "Yo, those bones in the Bible,
Dry bones.
the dry bones must come alive, must come together. They must come alive."
Hlangana matam.
That was me. That was literally me in that season. I'm like, I don't know how to be in this space entirely, but because of where I've been and the struggles that I've gone through, I did anatomy. Was I not using the anatomy that I did and used and studied for in animal science now in my vet degree? Because some of the stuff in vet, when the way that they present it, it was not making sense to my brain. And I was like, but I've done this before. So I had to go back to where I was.
Yeah.
So had I skipped ahead, right, I wouldn't have those resources. I wouldn't have those files. I wouldn't have that information.
Isn't God amazing?
Right?
Because God allowed you to go through that because He knew you'd need it in the future.
So He delayed.
Sure.
Right? He delayed so that I could have the resources in the next season to actually navigate possibly the hardest course I've ever done in my life. Like BSc is hard. Anyone who does a BSc will tell you it is hard. Studying in tax is hard.
It's hard.
It's just like, I don't know.
You're
doing anything in tax, it's hard.
You know that fly at UP thing.
Yes, I'm like
no,
that used to irritate me so much.
Like, what flying to where? What on flying at UP?
We are struggling. You know.
Yeah.
So it in hindsight, and I remember having a conversation with my mom, especially in that first year, and being like, the first time I could tangibly say, look at God. Look at what He's done. The friends that I had and was making now in that course and in that season were very different to the ones that I had before, right? I was with people who were also had taken different paths. One of my closest friends was an architect. He qualified, went and worked, moved to the UK, came back, and then now he was like, I'm doing what I want now, which is this course, right? So we called ourselves the oldies because we were the older ones.
You were the older ones.
We were the older ones in class who'd been through some things. Who'd seen life a little bit. And obviously people were coming in from high school and they were like, cliquey, and they were like, they had their own clique. So we had like this mixed masala group of friends who were older and but we held each other together in those periods, and really they are some of my most my little squad, right? And some of them are still friends with to this day, and we're still like connected, and we've seen each other through that season. So cut to Ondersteport, it's beautiful. Ondersteport is a struggle. I won't lie, anyone who's been to Ondersteport as a person of color, your experience is very different to our other counterparts. But God being God, I had the most incredible 6 years on that campus. I discovered a side of me that I didn't know existed, a leadership side of me that was, it had shown a little bit of itself in high school when you were a prefect, but now it was like coming full on out and coming to fruition. I to be honest, friend, I feel like I did well. I did so well. Like I was like,
incredibly.
It's a humble brag. Because you're just like, oh no, I don't want to. No, but I did so well, friend.
To come out of all of that.
And to have the experiences that I had there now, to lead. I was like student leadership. I was president. My mom was telling me the other day that my mentor had bought someone else, and she's now in vet school. And she's like, she's like, oh, what's your daughter's name? And she's like, oh, Thandi. And She's like, oh, I've seen her face on the walls of campus. I haven't
Those
been.
walls that when you walked in for the first time, you're like, this boy do not look like me.
They do not look like me. Now there is someone else who looks like, another black girl, and they're up there, right? Our faces are up there now as well. So
Wow, look at God.
look at God.
Because who knows, if you had gone in at the time that you did, maybe for whatever reason you would not have been chosen as part of the leaders, and your
Exactly.
face would not have been there.
Exactly.
And the young black girls that come after you would not have had someone to look up
And
to
say
and be
that,
like,
oh, they also
I can do that too.
I can do that too. I'm not out of place. I am where I need to be. I am me in this space, right? And to be seen. And I remember telling my dad that I was like, I want to make sure that someone else who comes behind me doesn't have to struggle as much, which was part of the reason why I even went up for student leadership, because it's not the norm, right?
Yeah.
In our parents,
Yeah.
they're like, you're going to varsity
But
to study, focus,
study.
right? And I remember their hesitancy even when I said I was doing this, and I mean, it did affect a couple of things, but overall, the lessons that I learned out of that have been, they are unmatched. They are memories that I take with me daily, and
look at you now,
experiences.
yeah, vet in
Look
London.
at A.
You're like, she's always like, friend, today was hectic, like surgeries and stuff, and we're understaffed, and so I had to like a couple, and I'm like, look at you.
Look at me. Sometimes I like literally catch myself and be
You're
like,
I can't believe this.
is this me? Is this my life? Is this actually like my reality, my day to day? There are moments still you get on the train and you're passing like London Bridge and you're seeing the Shard and London Eye, and you're like,
this is me in London.
Like,
You know the London that we grew up seeing in the
Exactly.
movies, and this is me. I'm not visiting.
I'm not visiting.
I
no,
live here, darling.
I
live
like,
here.
even when you go home to South Africa, you're like, ish, but I miss my home, right?
And you're talking about London.
And I'm talking about London now. I'm talking about the space that never in my wildest dreams could this have been my life, because I finished and I was like, I really want to work in state. I want to work with the people. I want to pursue this, state career, and that's where, because even the being in private practice is a whole other ballgame in comparison to South Africa. To here, it's a weird space to navigate. And I was so tainted as well in some of the experiences and encounters that I had, even as a student, that I was like, yo, and this is not for me. I don't want to put myself in that again, right? I don't want to be the transformation leader
like,
in the practice. Like,
I'm done being a matter.
I'm done,
Good.
I just want to do my work and earn a living and build my life, right? And go home. So it kind of was a weird space. So we're finishing now. We start our CCS year, and COVID hits. And I'm like, okay, now my plan is still fine. My plan is still there.
Yeah.
It's still there. It was a beautiful season, a hard season, because I was living alone for the first time, and now we are completely in isolation.
Yeah.
All the plans I had of my, my delayed enjoyment,
Exactly,
as I called it, because I was like,
I waited so long for this.
I waited so long to be able to be in Joburg and have a car and, live my single life and enjoy it. And now COVID hits and it's just like, ma'am, sit down. And you're like, okay, so we're going to sit down. So here we are. So what now, God? What now? And then comes the journey of coming here. Because the plan was, I finished my CCS year, which is compulsory for anyone who qualifies in SA. Next step was state.
Yeah.
I'm trying to apply. I'm a state positions. It's not happening.
Again, there's another
And
delay.
I'm like, hi, boo, okay. So I literally remember intentionally going into like a season of prayer and being like, okay, God, this feels like familiar ground. We've been here before, right? You've literally physically carried me through my course. You've given me moments of joy and beauty in it as well. Now we're meant to be cruising, Jesus. We are meant to be, things are meant to be happening. We're supposed to be looking at the next step of life, right? We're supposed to be I've had my share of hardly my delayed joy. This should be easy now. And literally was like, I felt like God saying, sit down. let's just work through some things. And that was really lockdown going in towards the end of 2020 was really my year of just settling, processing some of the stuff that had happened, past relationships, friendships, and reconfiguring my life a little bit. And it was the sweetest time with God. Worship, prayer, reading the word, and just being in that space where you don't have distractions. And it's just...
Sometimes God takes away some of these things and it's just like, I want you to be still.
Yeah. I need you to see me.
Come back to me.
Come back to me. So it was... So there was a song that I found in that season by Brian and Katie Torwalt, and it's called Prophesy Your Promise. And it became like my anthem. And I would play the song. And it was also the time when the blessing was coming out, you know, like, you know, like everyone knows that season. So we're in it. I'm starting to update my LinkedIn profile, and I'm like, you know, okay, let's start looking elsewhere and seeing what other jobs are out there. And I came to the realization that maybe I might need to go into private practice because my plan is not panning out. So we're navigating that. I'm applying. I'm getting no's, and I'm like, but I'm a new grad. I qualified. Like, look at my CV. Like, you know, like, why it doesn't make sense, right? Until I got an email from a recruiter in the UK. Who then said, listen, I saw your profile. Do you want to have a chat? And I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll have a chat. I'm not doing anything. It's locked down. So we had a chat. We had a call. It was a very like relaxed call. And he's like, okay, listen, I really like you. I like the way you are and your skill set as well. Let me send over some possible posts and like fill in the skills matrix for us, because particularly in the UK we use a skills matrix to apply for most jobs, so it kind of is a standardized way of understanding what your skill set is and where you are and what you might how we can place you. So it's pretty standard. So I filled that in, sent it back to him. He comes back I think the same afternoon and he's like, oh, there's 2 practices that would like to interview you.
Oh wow.
And I'm like, excuse me, sir? Me? And he's like, yeah, when are you available? There's like, they would like to interview you. Now, coming from the experience of job hunting in SA, like, where you're not even getting interviews now, right?
Or even a response.
To getting this immediate response. I'm like, is this real? Is this real? Right? So I'm chatting to a couple of people as well at the same time. I'm getting advice. Thankfully, my best friend and Heart as well, and you've met her. She had moved to the UK in January, and so I'm like checking in with her, and I'm like, hey friend, are these things are they legit? You know, things are happening out there. So she's like, no, they legit. She's like, I'll just interview with them and see, right? Interview with them, they really like me, they make an offer the same day, and now you're converting between rands and pounds, and you're like, what? Will I be able to survive? Right? And she's like, and then I get in contact with her again, and I'm like, oh, this is what they're offering. And she's like, nah, friend, for your skill set, nah.
They're playing you.
We're looking for someone. Why don't you send your CV to us?
Okay.
And I'm like, okay, yeah, sure. It's like, what harm can it do? It's still, again, I haven't fully committed to this idea of moving.
You're still just trying to see.
I'm still trying to see, right? So I send it in. We set up an interview, really lovely interview. Love my old boss. Who would later become my boss. She makes she's asking questions and asking about my experience and where I would like support. Which is a question that I think if you ask a lot of people who are qualifying in SA, going into the working force, particularly in our vet field, is not a question that is commonly asked. How can we support you? There is this expectation, because we're all type A, that you come in already qualified as well. So it's sort of like a sink or swim. Like it was about right, you know. So having that, and I was like, oh, that is a different question. So make the decision. They make their offer. It was a really great offer. They're offering visas, everything. Even through the visa application process. I'm still like, is this real? Is this real? You know, until I got on that flight. And
but even when you're on the flight, you're like, until I'm past immigration.
Exactly, right? Maybe it's like, it's not real. Get on that flight. I get here, and hence starts the UK journey. And it was the first 2 years we're adjusting because you're dealing with COVID, being away from home. You checked into the work environment as well, and you're dealing with the changes and differences between how you would handle a consult at home versus how you would handle it here. And best decision ever.
Amazing.
Best decision ever.
Friend, I'm listening to you right now, and I'm like, we're supposed to transcend into a different part of our conversation, but I'm like, a lot of it is going to be transferable.
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
you've been through the season where you want something. It's something that you believe is good for you. You have prayed for it. You've done the work, and you've seen others go ahead of you and get it, and you waiting. Exactly. And it's just not happening for you, right?
Yeah.
But you are going through it again now in a different part of your life. And I must say that the reason why we decided to have this conversation is because, for whatever reason, maybe it's the different movements that are happening in the world today. A lot of women, even men, I don't know, but I have a lady in front of me, so I'll speak about women. We're conditioned to put up this picture that we are fine, we're doing good, we're good on our own. We don't need companionship. If it comes, it comes. If it doesn't, we're good. Like there's even this saying, I'm a strong black independent woman who don't need no man, right?
Yeah.
And yet, deep down, a lot of people want that, but we don't talk about it. I don't know what it is that has made people feel like it shouldn't be spoken about. I don't know if it's the picture that society is portraying, so you don't want to look a certain way.
Yeah.
But we're speaking particularly about waiting on God for a partner.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
In this phase of your life where you've waited before and you've gotten on the other side, but right now you're currently in a waiting season and you haven't seen the other side
of it, right?
How is that going?
That is, again, going back to your point earlier of how transferable it is.
Exactly.
Those lessons that I learned and that time and that delay in my career have literally allowed me to be able to wait better.
They've prepared you for this moment.
They've prepared me for this moment. They've
Ellen White says, there's a saying, a quote by her that is so profound. I don't know it by word for word, but where she says we have nothing to fear for the future, except if we forget how far you've led us in the past.
Exactly.
And at the time you're going through this, you didn't know that you'd have to wait.
Yeah,
because a lot of us growing up, right? We think you go to school, you get your degree or whatever. You meet a nice guy, you fall in love, and one thing leads to another, and then you get married, and then you live happily ever after.
Exactly. So it's that expectation that the normal trajectory of things should follow this order, and this order that has really been communicated to us since we were young, right? That do school, stay in school, get your degree. Like the rest will follow,
and especially when you feel like you've done everything right.
Yeah, exactly.
When you can't point to a point in your past where you can be like, okay, fine, maybe this is punishment for doing ABC.
Exactly. So it's one, realizing. I think we had a conversation with my friend Zini about this, and there was something that she said, and it was, I think, the first time that I thought of it, right? That it's not following God and doing the right thing before him doesn't necessarily guarantee that everything else will be perfect. He doesn't owe us that, right? I remember the first time she said that to me, and I was like, please, whoa. Because, excuse me, miss?
Of course he does.
Like,
I've been a good girl.
I've done this the way. He does not owe me that, right? He doesn't. He is a good father despite that. The fact that hasn't happened in my life the way that I expected it to happen doesn't take away his goodness. It doesn't diminish his beauty and his sufficiency. He still is, right? We preach this gospel of Jesus is enough. We say it often enough, but we don't always know the everyday reality of it, right? So I remember we're sitting literally in our flat on the floor, and it was the first time I think I've verbalized saying, I don't know if I could ask God of that. it felt strange for me to ask him about my partner, right? Even though you're taught to pray about them, it felt strange for me to be in that space of vulnerability with God. And it was a strange thing.
Yeah.
And I remember verbalizing it and being like, oh, have I done something wrong? Have I said something wrong before God, that this is something that I desire, that I want this, that I want a family. I've grown up in a beautiful family.
Yes.
Beautiful, beautiful family. And it felt strange to say those words, because again, society and the environments that I was in, I'm in a very male dominated world. And I am not the tallest person.
Yeah.
I'm a Black female from a different country, right?
Yeah.
You walk into spaces and you need to immediately assert yourself in a certain way.
Yeah.
So part of that as well, in trying to succeed and create a successful career, you're almost having to negate your certain things, certain parts of you. So you can't, not in all spaces can you freely talk about the fact that I desire a husband, I desire a family, I desire being a mother and building a home, right? Because it feels almost like
then you're not serious. About what we're trying to build here.
Yeah, we are busy here. We are building empires here. We are building empires here. When the greatest calling that is placed upon us, right, is to raise a new kingdom that will reflect Him. Right? That's the thing. So you swallow it. You swallow it. You put it down. You push it down. You disguise it in certain ways until that day that you're literally like. I remember the first time I said it unashamedly, and I was like, I wish to be a mother. I want children. I dream of having children. I dream of having a family, of building a home, and also being an amazing vet. These two ideas can both coexist, right?
They're not mutually exclusive.
And it does not diminish that, right? So once I said it, it felt like, okay, I've said it now. I know God doesn't owe me this.
Yeah.
It is a blessing.
Yeah.
It is a gift from Him. But surely it should happen.
Yeah.
Right? Because I've said it now. He says, ask and you shall receive, right?
Seek
And you shall find. Knock and what, like, you know? So I was like, in my head, in my processing head, I was like, I have asked.
In no uncertain terms.
You know, it's very clear.
Yeah.
So, Jesus, it should by now, you know, but Jehovah, it should have happened by now. It should be, right?
And then it just doesn't.
And then it didn't. And it doesn't, right? And then we enter the new season of, okay, so my wait is taking a little bit longer. So how do we navigate that?
How do you navigate that? How do you know if I should keep waiting, or maybe this is just, you remember that prayer that you prayed in the valley and you say, God, like, if this is not meant for me, take it away from, like, how do you know right now in your season? You're still in the waiting season, right? And you're still in the praying season and believing God for it. How are you able to still believe that he has promised this thing to you? What does that look like? What does that journey look like?
Because, friend, everything else in my life says that God is intentional, right? God is good and God is kind. My very life, my very existence, the life that I'm living now speaks to that. So why can't I trust Him even with this? Why can't I surrender even this, right? And it is, again, it tekas some days. Yeah. Some days it's a solid faith, it's a solid decision that you remember and you're like, I know
this is for me.
I know that this is for me. Also, the desire hasn't been removed from me.
Yeah.
Because
that's a good one.
That's a good one. It hasn't been removed from me, and there's been more affirming signs around it that says that this is what He wishes for us. Okay. This is what He will bestow upon us. How it happens, when it happens, that's a whole other conversation.
You know, there's a song that says, you know, when you don't understand, when you can't see His hand, when you, what does it say? So when you don't understand, when you don't see his plan.
Mm-hmm.
When you can't trace his hand, trust his heart.
Mm-hmm.
This is what you're speaking to, right?
Yeah.
I don't understand. I don't see his plan. I can't really trace his hand. I'm not seeing him moving the pieces, but I can trust his heart.
Right?
And his intentions.
And that honestly had to come about where I had to spend time, not only just like away from the questions, which again, moving away from home helps a lot.
A lot.
A lot.
A lot.
It helps a lot, guys. I'm not saying we all need to pack our bags
It really
and move
does
to the
help.
UK.
It really lightens the societal expectation load. I will say that.
It really does, because you're in a country where really nobody cares. Like what? What?
Nobody cares. No one is bothered. Yeah.
No one is bothered. Where it's like a constant question. And like literally, even I was home now and I was still like, every now and again those questions will come up. And honestly, I will say they are not for my parents.
That's the thing. This is coming back again where we started, that the people who matter in your life, they know where you're at, they know where your heart is, they know your desires, and they're never the ones, poking you. They're never the ones, rubbing the soul. They're never the ones concerned or wondering. They're good.
They're good.
They know your journey, and they're praying for you in where you are right now and hoping the best for you. But they're never the ones who are opening the wound.
They're not. We're not. Yeah, they're not. So it's moving away, because now again I was given the opportunity to shed some weight when I moved, right?
Yeah.
To shed some people that were asking those questions as if they were partnering with me in this, and did they not? I'm just giving them content for the afternoon tea. So I'm like, hey, it's fine, get on the plane, babes, and go. So I had to move myself, go into a season of isolation again, and begin to work through some things with God again. And not even again, but it was a new territory, because now I have this newfound intimacy that I'm now learning God's heart for me, right? I am now learning what it actually means to commune with God, to walk with God, to sit in his presence. And it's not always, it doesn't look the same for every person, right? There are seasons of it that look like I'm diving deeply into the word, and like the word is there and it's consistent, but it's also seasons of just literally being in praise and being in worship and just being in awe and just discovering that, like, he really likes me. Not only likes me, he loves me.
So
And
much
he died for me. And that is a beautiful place to be in. So I think that's where we are right now. We're in that season of not only getting to know him, but also further understanding his heart, surrendering in a new way and in a new light. And it's a daily thing, being enlightened by the fact that his grace truly and honestly is sufficient. It really is. It really is. And I would not have been able to say that had I not gone through the things. I've seen it. I've gone through the things that I've gone through. I've gone through the seasons of waiting, and I'm seeing other examples. And I think it's in where we've spoken to this as well. We're in a season where people are more honest about where they are. This facade that we have as Christians and as believers, that we need to have it all together before we come to God. He can handle my emotions. He can handle my heartbreak. He can handle my disappointment. He can handle my expectations. It doesn't take away from his godness and his sufficiency for me. So that's where we're at. That's where we are right now. We are in Jesus is enough. He really, truly is enough.
And to think, my next question, my final question was actually going to be, what do you think God is trying to teach you during this season?
Ooh. In this particular season, slow down, enjoy. There's still more to enjoy. I think we live in a city that is very hustle and bustle, and everything keeps going. I'm learning to lean in a different way, and not to hold back, right? Because I think there's the inclination or the hesitancy when these things don't happen, or when you're in the waiting season, that you stop everything. waiting.
It consumes you.
It consumes you, right?
consumes
You
so
become bitter
much.
and you become frustrated and you become stagnant, right? But at the end of the day, I'm realizing, and it's a daily process. I'm realizing that I can't stop becoming who God has called me to be.
Yeah.
Whether that person comes or they don't
doesn't.
come, at the end of it all, I
God
need
has
to be.
purposed me for
He has
something.
purposed me for something, and I need to be able to account for that. So it's
Right.
almost, it's like I'm in a season of stewardship. And I'm stewarding the season of my life. I'm stewarding the job that he's given me, the family that he's given me, the community that he's given me, because I will have to account for these things. I will have to say what I have done. And have I been a good and faithful servant? Have I? And if not, how can I be that good and faithful servant, right? How can I fully live my life, and how can I fully express who he has called me to be? Whether it happens or it doesn't, I need to be content in him. I need to be able to say that these are the gifts, these are the people, these are the friends that you've given me, the community that you have blessed me with, the department in church that you have called me to serve in, the job. This is the client that you've placed in front of me today that last week may have been saying some things about me in a Google review, but I need to still be able to account for my actions towards them on a day-to-day basis. And some days it's really easy to show up fully in that presence, and other days it's a little bit harder. So in all of that, our God is good. Our God is intentional. Our God is, he's in the details. He's in the details.
I'm saying a lot, and you know I, because
Yeah.
we talk a lot.
Yeah.
You know, you know you're speaking to me.
Yeah.
Friend, thank you so much.
Such a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Like I honestly don't know what to say to close this. I am now deep in my thoughts. I am deep in my reflection.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I believe you have just allowed God to use you.
Thank you, Holy Spirit. I was nervous. You know this.
I know
I
you're
was
nervous.
so
You're 30
nervous.
minutes late because you're nervous.
I was so nervous. I was like,
Thank you
Yeah.
for listening to the call, whatever it is that made you come nervous as you were.
Yeah.
I think it has accomplished its work.
Yeah.
Thank you, friend. I appreciate you.
Thank you. I appreciate you, and I love you.
And I love you.
I love your platform, friend. Yay!
And that is our inaugural
That is-
episode. Oh my gosh, who knew it would get so deep? I'm really thank you so much, Thandi, and I really hope you guys enjoyed it. And man, what a way to start.
What a way to start.
You know, I'm always available in the comment section. Whatever thoughts you have, just put them in there.
Yeah.
We will deal with them. But thank you so much for staying till the end. As usual, if you loved it, please like, please subscribe, and do all the things. And yeah, man. Thank you, Thandi. I'll see you guys on the next episode. Goodbye.